Hello and welcome the learners of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Open University. Today we are going to consider yet another scintillating lesson on job evaluation. This is being offered as part of MBA first year second semester. This is also part of the block 4, that is reward management and employee management. And then we will be able to look into the different aspects of job evaluation. Let me begin with some curious questions today. The first and the foremost question, why is a manager paid more than a supervisor? Have you ever thought about it? The other one is salary based on a person or position, because persons can be different but position remains the same. And that also brings the question of gender pay parity as well. Are all jobs equally valuable? And the other question is, how do firms ensure internal pay fairness? Remember this word fairness. Whenever we pay and fairness, they go together. Can job value be measured scientifically? Are there instruments? Are there any kind of metrics that we can measure? And the last and the final question that I wanted the listeners and everybody to concentrate on is, what happens if jobs are wrongly evaluated? Will that result into some kind of other pay and so on? Let's dive deep into these questions, and there are also other bunch of questions like, should experience matter more than the job role? Experience versus performance, that's the key measure today. And is job evaluation objective or subjective? The other important area that we are also going to dive deep today is, can job evaluation remove any kind of pay biases? The other question is, does job value change over time? Like 20 years ago, the jobs which were in high demand, they are not in demand today. What is the reason? So jobs also change the value over a period of time, isn't it? And then who should evaluate the jobs? Is it the responsibility of the HR managers or the specialist managers who are already working? And then is job evaluation same as job performance appraisal? You have to think about these questions. So let's first and foremost look into the meaning of job evaluation. What is job evaluation? It's basically a systematic process of determining the relative worth of the job, the importance of the job that is being questioned in the job evaluation. It not just evaluates the job, but it also tries to look into the compensable factor. It's not about the person, it's not about the job holder, it's about the job per se. And that is why they compare the job within the organization and ensure that there is internal equity. One of the chief purposes of any organization is to maintain the internal equity or internal fairness as such. So what are the different bases for the pay structure? We will learn today in the subsequent slides as we have it. And is there a scientific approach or a method so that we can fix the wage? And these are the bunch of thoughts through which that we will look into it. What are the major objectives of the job evaluation? If you look at it, first and the foremost thing is to have the fair wage differential. We need to establish in the organization the fair wage essentials and then ensure internal equity, and then also eliminate some of the anomalies that the wage can bring in. There may be some inequity issues, but the organization like HR supposed to take care of all these things. The other major thing is to provide the rational wage structure so that there are no conflicts at the employee level, and that's another very interesting area. And then as HR, you would like to support all the decisions being taken by the administration, and then overall you have to improve the employee satisfaction. So job evaluation in turn will also lead to the job satisfaction as such. Now, there are a bunch of questions that generally come up with respect to job analysis and job evaluation. So what is the key difference between the two? If you look at the first and the foremost thing, job analysis is basically about the statement of the job, the thought content of the job per se, whereas job evaluation is about the relative worth and value of the job. That's the key difference that you have to keep in mind. So, but it's always that the job analysis precedes the job evaluation, and most of the analysis is purely descriptive in nature, whereas evaluation is more about comparative analysis and comparing jobs within the organization. That is why it's important to know both of them, and both are basically interrelated. One leads to the other in some sense. So job evaluation and performance appraisal, there are also umpteen number of doubts and ambiguity that can create. So let's try to demystify them today in this session. First and the foremost thing, that job evaluation assesses the relative worth of the job in comparison to the other different jobs available in the organization. On the other hand, performance appraisal assesses the employee rather than the job. How was the performance of the employee in the previous months, or maybe in the last quarter or a year, and so on. So evaluation is job centered, whereas appraisal is person centered, and evaluation sometimes is infrequent, whereas performance appraisal is almost like ritualistic practice in the organization, happens periodically, and that's why they are both different. So what are the prerequisites that are required to maintain the job evaluation? First and the foremost thing, without the clear and conceptual understanding of job descriptions, it's very difficult to evaluate the jobs. And you need to have job description, job specification. Job description deals with the KSA, that is knowledge, skills and abilities, whereas a job specification deals with the, you have qualifications as such. So tasks, duties and responsibilities that we talk in job description, whereas in job specification we talk about the qualification and the experience. So the top management commitment is the pioneering thing that is needed in the job evaluation. Without their support, it will be really difficult. And employees need to also accept the job evaluation. You need to create a committee who are trained in the job evaluation, without which it's always going to be tough. And then the communication has to be fair and transparent as well. So what are the key principles of job evaluation? Let's look into them very briefly. First and the foremost thing is that what are the jobs that are being evaluated? Remember that it's all about the jobs, not about the people. And you need to maintain a little level of consistency across the jobs. And you need to also try and achieve objectivity in the assessments that we generally do it. And the foremost ground on which job evaluation actually stand is the equity and fairness. So try and maintain equity and fairness, and you also need to maintain transparency as such. So it's not just one point in time that you do job evaluation, but you need to regularly check and review these things. So what are the factors that one can consider while we go ahead with the job evaluation? First and the foremost thing, the skills required, and what are the different kinds of efforts involved in any particular job, and the amount and the type of responsibility one shoulders it. It also brings to that level as such. And then another very key area of the job evaluation is the working condition, like somebody working in the night and someone working in the day, someone working in the air versus someone working on the water, and someone working on the land. So these are the different conditions. Some people have working conditions on the roads and pavements. There are a lot of people who work on the roads and not really sitting in the plush offices or AC cubicle. So these working conditions are also going to matter a lot in the job evaluation. And then you have to have some authority over the decisions, and overall it's going to impact the organizations. So we have learned about the conceptual understanding of the job evaluation. Now let's move our discussion to the methods of job evaluation. There are various methods, two important methods that we can talk about. First and the foremost thing is the quantitative and qualitative. Quantitative deals with the numbers, whereas qualitative deals with maybe interviews and so on. In both the cases, the objective is to evaluate the jobs. So you can even say non-analytical methods and analytical methods. It's purely based on the purpose of the job evaluation that these methods would be applied. And also the choice of the organization would determine which method that you are going to employ. One of the important methods of the quantitative method or the analytical method is the ranking method. As the word says, ranking, the jobs are ranked from the highest to the lowest. Let us say the director is the highest ranker, whereas probably a group 4 employee would be the lowest in an organization. So you can even look into the hospitals. The CEO of the hospital will be highest, followed by maybe the paramedics and the janitor and so on. So it's a very simplest evaluation method. It doesn't require a lot of complexity into it, and smaller organizations can easily do this kind of ranking method where the number of jobs are limited. You can even think of how many jobs that are there in your organization. But few of the advantages and disadvantages of the ranking method is that it's highly subjective, because the one who's giving the ranking, that is a subjective matter, and then there are no real detailed analysis that you can come across. So you can see, I gave you the example of the CEO, supervisor ranked below the managers, and clerks ranked lower. You can see bunch of examples are also mentioned here as such. So the other classification or the grading method that we can think of is the grading. As versus the ranking, grading is another very brilliant method that we have. So what do you mean by grading method? The grading method works on the basis of the jobs being grouped or preferred the grades. So you're going to group the jobs which are similar in nature, and then you can even grade them. And each grade has their own job description. And this is widely used in lots of government organizations. And one of the easiest things to understand about the job grading is that it's easy to administer. It doesn't require a lot of complexity, and you can easily see that it is less precise than the point ranking or the ranking method. So broad job categories that you can easily get through the grading method. A few of the examples, like grade A, you have top management; grade B, middle level management; grade C is a supervisory staff, and you can even have so on. So grade D and E, if you look at it precisely, you will see clerical staff and support staff and so on. So what you have done, you have precisely given the grades and you have categorized them. So each grade would differ on the basis of the pay. So you can clearly know that grade A means the top management, and their pay would differ from each other. Point rating method is another interesting method, and it is more lean towards the scientific method in some sense, because in this method the jobs are broken into compensable factor. The compensable factor can be 3 or 4 or sometimes 6, like you have the working conditions, you have the skills required, responsibilities shouldered. All of these are compensable factors, and each factor you are going to give them some points. So these points are determined by the job evaluator, and then at the end the total points are being summed up, and it is the way of highly objective way of giving the point rating method as such. Large firms generally use that because it's easy to administer, because when you have multiple layers in the jobs, a point rating method is considered to be quite good. Some of the compensable factors that I was mentioning you, like skills, education, experience, responsibility, effort, working conditions, problem solving ability, like IT engineers have greater problem solving ability, and that's how they will be able to do it. So there's 200 points that you can give it to the skills, or maybe 300 to the responsibility, and effort can be 150, and the total point is something like 750. So you can add up to all the points, and whoever gets more and better points, their pay structure would differ. Another very interesting area of the methods that we talk about is the factor comparison method. As the name suggests, factor comparison. We are comparing the factors that are compensable. Like combination of ranking and point method gives rise to the factor comparison method. So the key jobs are selected and they are compared job wise. Like the CEO's job is compared with the manager, and the manager job may be compared with the supervisor. So you can compare in pairs, you can even compare with all the rest of the jobs that you are likely to evaluate. And for that you need to understand the complexities of the comparison. This is far less I would say complex than the point rating, because in this case we are comparing the other jobs, the rest of the jobs in the organization, but this takes a lot of time and effort, hence they are also being used very less. So take an example that you have a machine operator and his skills are compared with the fitter, and then the responsibility is compared with the supervisor. Then you can fix the monetary value that you have. So in this case, the factor comparison helps you to determine the job worth or the relative worth of the job. That is why it is there. Now let's move our discussion into the advantages of job evaluation. Job evaluation is quite important, as we all know. So it ensures internal equity. That is the essence of any good job evaluation, and as it provides fairness into the organization. It also minimizes the disputes that may arise due to comparing a lot of wages into the organization. And the other important thing is the scientific bent of mind. Through scientific wage determination, job evaluation is in a position to justify why certain jobs require more pay or get more paid, and then the others don't really get those pays as such. And it also helps the unions to have the collective bargaining. So generally in unionized organizations, unions will come and place their negotiations at the table, and they have the collective bargaining and so on. So overall, it's a win-win situation for the management, for the unions, and also the HR, because it enhances their credibility as such. So job evaluation are directly proportional to the wage structure. How does it happen? It happens through the job hierarchy. So as we know, the jobs in the organizations are hierarchical in structure, as they also form the basis for the pay and the pay grades as such. So there is a logical flow of the pay differential. So one job differs from the other, like professor, associate professor, and assistant professor. These are all the three teaching designations in position, but the professor is going to have more experience and hence going to get more pay. So it also helps you to get the incentives plan in place and aligns with the value and the pay together. So overall, if you look at it, the advantages of having a job evaluation and this wage structure is to promote the fairness. We can look some of the case studies, like we can talk about, because we have different sectors in the industry. Few of the industries like manufacturing company, so wage disputes are quite common. Let us say Maruti Suzuki, you have Manesar plant, you have Gurgaon plant, you have outsourcing staff, you have permanent staff. So there are always some or the other level of disputes that happen over the wage structures. So job evaluation being introduced into manufacturing unit will actually going to help reduce these disputes. So a few pointers you can think of when you are dealing with the manufacturing sector. You can employ the point rating method that is more reliable than the other methods. So you can clearly distinguish between among the jobs. You can clearly have the hierarchical structure, and that will reduce the disputes, and also overall it helps to promote the industrial relations and increase the productivity as well. So now from manufacturing we can look into the IT sector, because IT sector has been contributing a lot to the GDP of the country. So if you see, the focus is more on the skill and the inventory. So what happens with the fast changing nature of the job and also the market conditions, perhaps you have to quickly adapt to the rapid changes that this industry brings in. So you require, more and more, probably time and again, the re-evaluation method you need to employ in IT sector. So broad banding can be used because of the flexibility. So instead of having too many pay grades, you can bundle them together and create the broad banding. And there is also another very interesting area that this industry actually invites, is the market pricing. So market is paying in certain way, and hence it's important to look into it. So there is always the flexibility of pay one can get into it. The third example perhaps you can also think of is the public sector undertaking. So Government of India, public sector is where you will have a lot of rules, regulations and governance and so on. That is why we are in a position to look into these things. So job evaluation and pay equity is another very brilliant way to ensure equal pay for equal work. It also reduces the gender pay gap. Men and women, males and females are paid very differently. That is why it's important to bring the legal framework into place as such. So in a way that you are basically investing into the trust of the employees, and then it also promotes the holistic culture of fairness in the organization. So what is the key role of the HR in the job evaluation? Well, HR plays a very significant and important role in job evaluation, because they are right from the design stage to the selection of the appropriate method, and then also the ability and providing training to the job evaluators, communicating the outcomes to the employees and to the top management and stakeholders. All those things, including the grievances, is done by the HR. You can even form a job evaluation committee that will include the HR. You can include almost all the important stakeholders of the organization. Then you can take a collective decisions into it. So the steps that are there are quite important. They are very easy to follow. Like the first step is to have the job analysis, without which it's quite tough. Then you can group the jobs which are look-alike, and then you can select the right appropriate method which is suitable for the purpose of the job. And then you evaluate the jobs, and then the pay structures will come out. And as a matter of fact, you need to review at the periodic time, or periodically. If you take care of them, that will be good. Job evaluation also come with bunch of mistakes if you don't follow them. Some of the mistakes that evaluating the job holder instead of jobs, that is not going to help you. Ignoring the job which are changing rapidly, and then lack of transparency. There are also issues with the complex systems. Sometimes you may not understand them, employees may not be able to understand it. So don't create such systems, and there is no communication or poor communication, and there is no review that is happening. So these are the mistakes that you can have it. You can even think of job evaluation versus market pricing. The market is already deciding, like IT engineers are paid more. Traditionally manufacturing people were paid more in the past, but today we see that the market demand for data scientists and AI, prompt engineers and so on. That is why market surveys are being used to understand them. Broad banding, as I told you in the beginning, that in the IT sector we group the jobs together, and we can create the minimum and maximum of the pay band, so that there is a flexibility of flowing the members from one the pay grade to the other, and it is quite very important. So the overall understanding of the job evaluation and motivation is it is supposed to reduce the job dissatisfaction and also create equity and fairness in the organization. So you may land into trouble if you do not have the legal aspects of the job evaluation. Basically, law is very important. You need to follow the law of the land, and equal remuneration laws need to be followed. The code on wages are the new ones that you have. So documentation and transparency support, all of these are important. It also maintains good industrial relations because you are building trust with the employees, and also reducing the dispute that may arise into it. Thanks to the technology today, we have lots of easier methods of using the job evaluation. HR analytics have come very handy to the HR managers, and we can use a whole lot of technology, especially the data-driven technology that we have. The decisions that you're going to make is not purely on hunch or opinion, but on the basis of the data. It will further improve into it. We spoke about the legal issues. Let us concentrate on the ethical aspects of the job evaluation. Ethical aspect is the biasness in the evaluation. Is there a biasness that we have not seen or measured? It's very important for an HR manager to look into the biases. Are there any gender stereotypes? Try to reduce them. Is there a power influence from the top management that we generally come across? And then we really need to give focus on the fairness of the core value of the job evaluation. So what are the future trends that are making waves in the job evaluation? If you look at it, more and more skill-based evaluations are coming up, and hence the competency framework and dynamic job roles, because the jobs are keep changing into this unprecedented areas that are emerging. And then there is also this whole lot of focus on integrating the jobs with the AI today. So anything that you have generally going to take care of these things. You can clearly see that job evaluation point by level. This graph actually gives you some understanding of how the job evaluation is done on the basis of the points. So one point to the other point, the difference between each job. That's why you can reduce a lot of industrial dispute and so on. So at the end, let's wrap up and also look into the key takeaways of the job evaluation. Today we have seen that job evaluation basically looks into the evaluation of the relative worth of the job. It's not about the person, it's always about the jobs. And it ensures internal equity and fairness, and this is the reason and the basis for the wage structure. What you see as a wage structure is an outcome or output of the job evaluation, and then you can have a multiple methods of it, and it's purely on the basis of the purpose of the organization that you're going to adopt one or two methods into it. And the role of HR is very significant. You cannot deny that HR is always going to be there to help the right amount of job evaluation done in the most proper, transparent way. And the last and the final one is the fair evaluation drives the trust. In order to build the trust among the employees, job evaluation is the key. All right, so that's what we have it for you in this lesson of job evaluation. So thank you so much for joining in this edition, and we look forward to your company again. And until then, it's goodbye from all of us from Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Open University. Education at your doorstep.